Hey, what is going on, guys? In today's video, we'll do a in-depth comparison of EZFN versus Project Nexus and help you decide which one is the right choice for you. Now, if you're looking for a blanket statement of me saying one or the other is always better, that's not going to happen in today's video, as they actually are noticeably different. And what that contributes to is that each of them have specific advantages, and depending on what you're looking for in OG Project, it's totally valid to say both options are better depending on the player. So hopefully, though, with today's video, we'll be going through the advantages and disadvantages of each, and that can help you decide which one might be the right choice for you. The first half of this video, I'm going to play EZFN gameplay, and then I'll switch to Nexus in the second part, so you should hopefully be able to see both. And we're going to split this video into 5 sections. We'll first talk about the similarities between the projects. We'll then move into the advantages of EZFN. We'll move into the advantages of Nexus. We'll then talk about 50-50 points, where you could argue it's an advantage for either one. And then finally, I'll give you a verdict and kind of help you decide, based on the way you like to play, which one might be the right choice for you. Okay, let's start out with the similarities. So both are Chapter 1 projects, and while they run different seasons, EZFN being on Season 4 and 7, and Nexus being on Season 8, the general feel of the game has a lot of similarities. The menu system is fairly similar between the two. A lot of the gameplay elements are similar, like the Saturday hours bounce fairly similarly. The pistol hasn't changed between Season 4 and Season 8, so there's a lot of similarities in the way they play. Both are willing to make non-historical adjustments. Off the top of my head, EZFN has Vaults of the Crossbow in Season 7, introduced Edit on Release to both seasons. They've buffed Turbo Build in Season 4, while Nexus, off the top of my head, has vaulted the Infantry Rifle in Season 8, and also put in a weird siphon configuration where you only get 20 materials of each type, but 50 health. So both do make adjustments that deviate from the original game, and both require external launchers as well, so you'll need the external account, and both of them really don't have that much of a cheating/hacking issue. There's very little teaming, really don't run into people aimbotting all that much. Yes, you may run into them from time to time, but compared to some other projects in the past, it's really a non-issue between these two. And with that, let's move into the key advantages of EZFN. So the first key advantage is just general accessibility. EZFN in general supports more platforms, supports more seasons, more modes, and more servers, right? EZFN you can play on PC, you can play on mobile, both iOS and Android. You can even play on consoles, but it's difficult to set that up. Overall, there's just generally more platform support. You can play Season 4 and 7, so you have 2 seasons to choose from. You have generally more modes overall, and that kind of comes from having more seasons, as you could decide to play Season 4 solos. Infinity Gauntlet, I don't think is working at this moment, but it has worked in the past. You can play Season 7 solos, Season 7 duos, or Season 7 LTM. Well, Nexus, generally, there's only 1 to 2 modes available at any given time, so just keep that in mind. In addition to this, there's also NA server option, so you may not get particularly great ping to EU, but with an NA server option, there you go, you can get better ping, right? So overall, it just means there's more ways to play. It's more accessible to people across the world on different seasons. So overall, that's definitely a big advantage, as you might only be able to play EZFN depending on your setup. So that's a big advantage there. The second big advantage, I think, is having more overall communication and transparency. The big advantage here is public player count, right? When you queue into a game, you can see exactly how many players are queuing into that mode on that server. You can also see an average player count on the Discord, which is very useful, as it just means you spend less time, getting into games with 5 people and wasting a game, right? So definitely a big plus there. And they also tend to run votes, right? So they voted in the past on should they allow double pump, should they buff turbo build in Season 4, right? So there's generally more communication between the general player base and the developers. You might disagree with the decisions that the general player base wants, but I think it is a nice plus that they do take into account general player feedback. Now, let's move to the advantages of Project Nexus. The first one, and it's a big one, is the queue system is so much more reliable. On EZFN, occasionally the queues work great, where you only queue for a few minutes and then get a nice big lobby, but that sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes the queue is way too fast, you get in 10 seconds, and then there's only 10 people in the game, or it's way too slow, and where you have to wait 20 minutes to get into a game. It's just never consistent, and you never know if the queue system is going to work correctly. On the other hand, Nexus queues work consistently fast and consistently give you good player counts. Of course, if there's only 3 people total online, you can't get good player counts. But the system does seem to scale the time based on the number of players, and you're generally going to have a good lobby. And you're never going to have a situation where you're waiting 20 minutes for a game. So overall, that is a nice advantage where you're not just sitting around waiting. The second advantage is also I've just noticed that Nexus generally has fewer technical problems. Now, This may not be true for everybody. You could probably find someone that has EZFN work flawlessly and Nexus have so many problems. But in my experience, EZFN have had the weirdest of issues. And from, hearing your issues in the comments of the troubleshooting video, off the top of my head, you have, the game crashing. You can't install the launcher. I've been kicked out of the queue. You can get banned for using OBS game capture. You have to roll back your drivers on AMD graphics cards to get it to launch. There's just so many issues. And on those videos, I really want to help you guys get this stuff fixed, but there's just so many niche issues that it's pretty much impossible to solve all of them, right? And while Nexus definitely has its fair share of problems, I've just noticed there's a lot less complaints from people saying the game crashes, it doesn't start up, just overall fewer technical issues. So I feel like you're less likely to run into hiccups when playing Project Nexus. Now, let's move into the 50-50 points, where you could argue either way whether these points are an advantage for EZFN or Nexus. And the first one is with cosmetics and progression. So EZFN, you get a 99% full locker immediately. There are 1 or 2 items missing, but generally you can play with almost any item available in that season. So if you have a specific combo you want to play with, you can use that immediately. That might be an advantage to you, but with Nexus, you don't get full items immediately, but V-Bucks are heavily inflated. You get them very fast, and you can use those V-Bucks to buy Battle Pass tiers and buy stuff from the shop. So if you want a little bit of a grind, get some progression going, Nexus might be better there, but if you want everything immediately, EZFN is the way to go. EZFN is also generally less difficult than average, I'd say. I would honestly say EZFN is the easiest OG project you're realistically going to find that has a decent player count. Some of you may still find EZFN difficult, and that's totally valid. If you're playing on mobile, honestly, props to you. That's got to be very difficult. But generally, EZFN's players are, on average, not the best. Even on EU, when I play at 130 ping without L2, because L2 is very inconsistent, I can still win solo games with around maybe 10 kills or so at best, which is really not possible on Project Nexus or any other project for that matter. And while, yes, there are, the resis running around cranking triple edits, for every 1 resi that's in EZFN, there's like 10 people that are not very good. So if you're new to the game, EZFN might be a better way to go. However, if you're looking for more of a challenge, EZFN is probably not the right choice. Nexus isn't super hard by any means, but people on Nexus are definitely overall better than they are on EZFN. The next point is there are some general meta differences. Like, I would say that the Season 7 meta in EZFN is really out of whack. Double spaz is the most busted thing I've pretty much ever used. It is crazy busted. Being able to fire 2 one-shot pump shots in less than half a second is ridiculous. Some of you may like that, though. Some of you may find that really fun. So just keep in mind there are meta differences against Season 7 and Season 8. If you look at Season 4 and Season 8, the meta is also quite different. In Season 4, you can run double shotgun. There's a lot of options there. Well, the Nexus meta, the shotgun meta is pretty much you run the spaz only, but the AR meta, SMG meta, that kind of stuff is more interesting. So it's not really better or worse. It's just look at the loot pools of each and kind of decide which way you want to go. Something to keep in mind, though, is in EZFN both seasons, you can run double shotgun. Okay, finally, in terms of the quality of life features, EZFN supports edit on release. Project Nexus, generally, it's not like a built-in feature where you can use edit on release. That's a pros and cons. On one hand, it makes it a lot easier to adjust from Chapter 5 Fortnite going to EZFN with edit on release. On the other hand, though, that arguably will make the game more difficult as people can, on average, edit faster. So it's not really better or worse. It's up to you to decide whether you like it or don't at this point. Okay, so with all the general differences out of the way, I now want to give my verdict, and I'm going to try and help you decide which project might be right for you by kind of going through some sample players that I think would enjoy one or the other. Let's start out with players that I think would enjoy EZFN. First off, if you're on a platform that Nexus does not support, you're going to want to play EZFN. Or, if you live on the Western North America and you don't have a good EU duo partner, you might want to play EZFN since you have NA servers. Overall, I'd say, though, EZFN is going to give you a generally more casual, relaxed experience. Yes, there are resis running around, but honestly, most players in EZFN are not the best. So if you're not the best, you don't want to, go super focused and trying to win super hard, EZFN might be a better choice. You can relax. You can fool around with silly stuff like throwing snowmen around or try to boogie your opponent, stuff like that. Just being relaxed and screwing around. EZFN is probably a better choice for you since people are on average less skilled. In addition, if you're a solo player, or an NA West player, I would probably recommend EZFN if you don't have a good EU duo, as really Nexus doesn't consistently have solos available to everybody, but EZFN solos is a staple mode. It's always there. So if you're a solo player, definitely recommend that. And if you want some cosmetic immediately, EZFN I'd also recommend, as you don't have to grind for anything. You can just get what you want immediately and start using it. Now for the people that might prefer Nexus more, if you're a team player that prefers duos and squads, I think Nexus is a better choice there, as they consistently have duos or squads online. Solos is often not on, which means that duo player counts are generally pretty good. So if you have a good duo to play with or a good squad to play with, Nexus is probably the better choice for you. In addition, if you're a bit more competitive, if you like to flex your mechanics and go for box battles with your opponents, Nexus is probably the better choice for you. EZFN, you might find it a bit boring, as there's a lot of people that aren't very good that aren't going to be able to keep up with you in a box battle or a piece control fight. So if you want to play those kind of things, Nexus is a better choice. And then finally, if you want a sense of progression, if you want to say, hey, I want to grind out V-Bucks, unlock the battle pass, unlock stuff over time, well then Nexus might be a better choice for you, as there is a progression system, while EZFN there really isn't any progression in terms of items. So with that, I hope this video was helpful. If you have questions, if you're unsure about something, of course, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll catch you in the next one.